time to start patch rundown for patch 0.36.0. All right, it's a pretty big patch. There is a lot going on here. The patch goes live. It goes live tonight at 9 p.m. PST. Maintenance starts at 7 p.m. PST. So, quick overview of the patch. A lot of buffs, right? We're seeing buffs to 11, Silvia, Yuki, Aya, Hart, Zahir, and Luke. Buffs to weapons and armors across the board, basically. Nerfs to Leon, Jackie, Rio, Cathy, Isol, Magnus, and Hyunwoo. Rip, right? Just big rips. And then, of course, equipment. These characters were adjusted. That means there are basically major changes to the items or people as a whole that change basically how they work. Here's Nikki. We'll talk about her later. Tutorial improvements. There's a new tutorial. Check it out, especially if you're a new player. Character selection improvements. Game preparation process will be reduced by 1 step. Players will be able to select characters, weapons, and save plans at the same time. And then character, weapon, and save plans that you used in your last match will be saved and used again. If you do not make any changes, it'll automatically load it up. If players leave during the planning phase, the match will still begin if there are not enough players left in the match. If it's a server problem, dodging, or players not changing overlap to characters when the timer ends, the team will be excluded from matchmaking. Very odd. So basically, if people are dodge in games now, we could have 15-man solo games, which is very odd, but that's a thing that could happen. Unfortunately, it takes a little while longer to get into practice mode now due to these changes. We are planning to add an immediate start function for practice mode in the future. Okay. Scoreboard matchup stats improvements. This is how the new scoreboard system looks. You can see its countdown for Meteor and Tree of Life on here, as well as the Wicca line, and then here's the map as a whole. So those are nice. CCTV lights. So now, instead of just wondering, like, is it on or off, you look to see if it's red, right? Because some cameras are actually hard to see at night. If you see a little red light, you can guarantee it, you know it's on. Dr. Naja is back. You know, she's the best. Character model improvements. GeoForce Now support with the keyboard and mouse. You can play Turn Return anywhere on low spec computers, laptops, Mac OS TVs, and more. Chat, you can finally play Eternal Return on your smart TV. I know there's quite a few of you in here who are hard stuck bronze, because you've been playing on your computers, and you are a native TV player, so you can finally play on your preferred device. It says and more, so I imagined for like the 3 of you out there that play on your Samsung smart fridge, that may also be an option. So just keep your eyes peeled and try to figure out like what you want to work with. Cooking time has been increased. So there's Xiukai nerfs later in here, but keep in mind that you'll be able to stack faster, so you can just, you know, you'll be able to make food faster. This actually does have implications for building food early game. There are some foods that, like garlic ramen, for instance, it just takes too long to make, so sometimes you won't want to make it, and now it's just a little bit faster. Play Luke on my iToilet because he's a piece of shit. Damn, I love Luke. Heal reduction for ranged is up to another 5%. I really don't like seeing this. I felt like the healing reduction for ranged and melees was a nice change, and they're just slowly undoing it. I feel like 30% was more than enough, and now we're up to 35%, so range gets another buff. Game start sprint is up from 30% to 70%. That's good. The 30% was nice, but it was kind of negligible. 70% means you'll really be able to reposition yourself like wherever you need to, and that may change how we play early routes. F8 allows you to show toggle overlays. That's good. So now we get into balance changes. Ready? Luke, Dirty Work E was a big SP drain, but really didn't do much for the cost. E's SP cost is down at later levels. Not a big deal. Lenox, we're adjusting Lenox to be more aggressive early. Without any dashes, Lenox relies a bit more than mobility the most, but benefits a lot more from it. We're tuning down that mobility a tiny bit, but compensating by giving more CC to Whiplash. So her base MS is down by 0.05, which is nice. She has really high base MS. Her HP per level is down, but her AP is up. Whiplash, though, has a higher movement speed reduction after getting flayed. So Lenox, I think, is already kind of aggressive, to be honest, in the early game. I really like the movement speed reduction because sometimes it feels like Lenox can just kind of walk you down. This is a big hit to the character in general because she lives and dies by her MS. Now, she does benefit from this high MS because she builds a very low base MS boots option, being Glacials, and now she'll be a little bit more punished for that, so it should be easier for you to weave in and out of her crit range on her Q. But she'll be doing more damage early, so keep that in mind. At tree, she'll be hitting a little bit harder. Leon is still splashing around and causing too much damage, so he's getting a 4 AP, base AP nerf. Leon actually is doing quite well now if you're a Leon main, or were interested in playing Leon before. I think he's still fine. A little bit more in line. Most of his damage comes from flat amp anyway, so it's not really that big of a deal, but you know, you are gonna see a little bit of a damage loss. Rio's W is being, cooldown reduction is being reduced by 50% when hit. That's huge because at the moment, she could basically W every 4 seconds. Now it'll be up to 6 seconds, I think, if she lands a hit, which is a much better implication. It's much more healthy for the game. Rio was a little cancer when around walls where she could go back and forth against melees, and that should be a little bit less oppressive to deal with. Magnus. Base attack speed is up, which is great for auto attack builds, especially builds that are focusing on attack speed, because that means every percentage of attack speed will be doing more for him. Tough body passive is being nerfed though. It has been really good. Even I've been maxing it. We may go back to not really valuing points in it at all, and just not touching it, which will mean that we prioritize going from Q to E now instead of Q to passive to E. And then his E stun duration is being decreased. 0.1 second isn't a huge change. I think the E stun duration was a little bit long, so I understand if this is the change they want to make, but I do not want to continue seeing CC duration changes. 1.3 is a long time as it is, but at the same time, he's one of those characters where it's like the CC's kind of all he's got, you know? Bernice, normal attack delay is decreased and his base attack speed is down. So basically what this means is Bernice should feel about the same, but he'll be able to get his autos off faster, so they'll miss less often, right? That's a big deal in my opinion, because it means that Bernice is going to feel a little bit more consistent. And I will be trying him after this change to see if he feels better to me without having to build a bunch of attack speed. Because if this feels how I'm hoping it does, he may not have to be hard stuck on radar anymore, and you might just be able to build like Quiver and Feather Boots, and he'll be fine from there. Xiukai is getting a major rework in this patch. He now only gains 3 HP per stack, and his stacks are capped at 150. Now to compensate for this, because this is a huge nerf, right, to the way Xiukai is currently played, he gains bonus stats based on how many stacks he has. At 50 stacks, he'll gain 10 defense. At 100 stacks, he'll gain 15 AP. And then at 150 stacks, he'll gain 150 max HP. And his ultimate gains an additional wave. Now, I'm not sure if this is like a great direction to take Xiukai. I feel like this is good. But I feel like he's gonna need buffs in other ways. Xiukai is more than likely going to be very weak coming from this patch, and not nearly as strong as he was, but he's going to receive compensation buffs in time. I'm more than likely sure, right? So in the meantime, Xiukai mains, you may be struggling for a patch. He may receive changes in the B patch that'll come in a few days after, and if not, then, you know, in the next coming up patch, you'll more than likely receive buffs to base damage on abilities and such. Sissela, we're reducing both the risk and reward for Go-God and Wilson. The damage upon arrival is being reduced by 10% AP, and then her HP consumption is down. So the HP consumption, really not a big deal at the end of the day. But the damage reduction is going to matter quite a bit. She doesn't build a bunch of AP, but it'll add up because you're going to be landing multiple hits of Q. And damage upon arrival is the easiest thing to hit for this, in my opinion. Silvia's Lumia Grand Prix, basically she can gain fuel 5 more seconds than usual. That's kind of nice. Sylvia does seem like she's been struggling for fuel gain. I'm not gonna say that I wish Sylvia was nerfed along with this, but I'm glad that we're not seeing a buff to her, because I feel like she's in a good spot, and this is a nice quality of life change to make the character a little more, better feeling to play. Aya is seeing base attack speed buffs, and she's having her base HP increased. Again, this is very big for builds that build attack speed. AR Aya is going to be in a much better position, but we can also see the return of EB Aya, or Elegance Aya, that focuses a little bit more on AP ratios and maxing W for its secondary source of damage. Isol. E cooldown has been increased, and Mock Mind's cooldown is also increased. Isol's been doing really well. If we look at high Korea or high elo in Korea, Isol has a very high pick rate, a very high win rate. He does really well in low elo as well. So these changes were bound to happen. I really like kind of pulling away from his E because it feels like his survivability is just way too good, and that's kind of where they're looking to fix things. I would appreciate Texty if you did not spam the chat like that right now, because this will be uploaded to YouTube afterwards. You gotta remember, you're like clogging up that entire side of the screen there. Anyways, you can do it later, I promise. Alex, let's see. Huh? Okay, so they're changing how the stack system works. So originally he could have 3 stacks with and the attack power increase was up to 12, but now the melee and range stacks are separate. So they're more so encouraging Alex to play both melee and range. You can get 2 stacks on melee and 2 stacks on range, and now your max attack power increases up to 16%. So basically you'll have to land Q with melee, swap to range, land Q, swap to melee, land Q, swap to range, land Q. And then his taunt duration is down by another 0.2 seconds. Again, this is a change I really don't like to see because I feel like changing taunt durations is a huge problem. This is actually a revert because we saw this buff to him not too long ago, and I'm glad to see it taken back. His E duration was very long, especially for how low of a cooldown it was and how low committal, right? He could kind of just throw it out. It would also double his mobility. I'm glad they undid that, and then of course this is a nice change because we do want to encourage a swapping playstyle for the character. This doesn't, I won't say that this nerfs Isol. It nerfs people who only play Isol with one form, but if you're playing Isol correctly, this right here is just an overall buff. You'll have more AP available, you just lost some taunt duration, which does suck. I think taunt could be longer. I kind of agree, but at the same time, I don't want this to become League of Tenacity, you know? William, base defense is up, HP per level is up, movement speed is up, no hitter stack duration is up. That's big because it feels like sometimes his stacks fall off a little too quickly. Fastball extra attack speed though is down. This is the best part of his kit in my opinion, is the fastball, and then his W cooldown is decreased as well. So big things I would like to mention. Movement speed is the best buff that a character can receive in my opinion, right? It increases route timing, it increases your ability to kite, close gaps. It is by far, in my opinion, the most important stat on a character when it comes to tweaking them if you want them to improve in both survivability and their ability to like get kills. Yeah, I said Isol, but I meant Alex. Anyways, so this is a great change. His damage will be down a little bit accordingly because of fastball. W cooldown is increased or decreased, which means he'll be able to self-peel a little bit better. And then of course he gets the defense and the HP per level. So he'll be safer. He'll be able to close that gap. He'll be able to finish his builds faster. And I think the character will be just a little bit better overall because it feels like when his Q gets online, his damage is more than enough. He does insane damage once you can get fastball online. The problem is just surviving long enough to get to that point, right? Yuki, perfect fit. His damage on his passive is being increased. I actually don't like this change at all. I feel like Yuki's doing very well right now. Stats, of course, don't agree. I feel like that's mostly because Yuki has a high play rate and a lot of players play him that they're not that great. He's a fanboy pick. Same as Shoichi, right? His stats are going to be kind of warped because of that. And we're really pushing this passive damage to the point where Yuki is doing a lot of true damage at the moment, especially on dual swords. We've already seen in the last ERWI, Yuki was an insanely strong pick. He's able to nuke teams, and there's really not people, I mean, you could do it with Jackie, but Yuki does it the best. If we were going to do buffs to Yuki, I really just do not want to see it continue to be done on passive. I would like to see either some base stat changes or changing maybe his E cooldown by like a second or something, or maybe the damage it does. But there's a lot of true damage in this game being added, and it's kind of worrisome because we're buffing true damage and we're nerfing defense. People are just gonna start dropping like flies. And I understand they want the game to be more aggressive. They want to deter more defensive builds and defensive play, but they should still be viable. And the more that we buff things like this, Yuki is already the biggest counter to any form of tank build, right? The more we're pushing those out of the meta and making them non-viable options. So it's like, if you said that Yuki needs to be changed, I would disagree. But if you changed Yuki in a different way, I would be more open to it. I feel like this change is where you're slowly getting back to the point where we're pushing Yuki over the top. 11. She's getting base damage, base defense increase, SP regen increased, meaningless stat. Her max stacks is up to 6. So this I didn't understand, actually. Let's look at something really fast. What does it mean by max stacks? That's so loud. Every 4 normal attacks, she drops a slider. Unique food, I think? Yeah, that has to be it, because she makes the 11 combo meal, which heals for 850. Okay, so yeah, she can stack 6 11 combo meals instead of 5. Whatever. The HP recovery's up. I guess that's nice. But the big meat and potatoes of this buff is these two right here. So Burger Queen, Q, movement speed reduction for 2 seconds has been increased up to 50% at level 1, and then 70%. So not maxing Q is way better now, and then the enhanced damage is also up at later percents. This is a huge buff because most of the times people are not leveling Q, so that 25% to 50% is really nice to see. Food for thought, W, she now gains reduced damage taken by 50% for 2 seconds. Based on how this is worded, she'll receive that whether she lands the taunt or not. I don't like that. I think she should only receive the damage reduced when she taunts an opponent. Because at the moment, she can kind of just use it while she's like walking away to reduce the damage she's gonna take. It's a very minuscule thing, but it's like, I don't know, it feels thematically weird to make it like she just gets a benefit just because she charged it, you know, even if she uses it in the wrong moment. E, drops faster when charged for a short time. That's whatever. It's good, I guess, if you're just gonna like raw E, but I'm not too worried about it. Good changes overall, though. 11 is in still kind of a like spot. Like, she's a melee killer. She has a burst combo. You just have to be mindful of that. It's not a big deal. As long as you have some kind of HP or defense, you should be able to survive 11's combo. You just, when she ults, you have to just, once the taunt duration is over, you need to just immediately disengage. If a character doesn't have a disengage or you got fucked without yours, I'm kind of on the side that says you probably deserve to die there. So does Zahir gets base defense increased? Zahir, I think it's hard for me to gauge Zahir because every character I play has a bad matchup into Zahir. So I always feel like Zahir is strong, but I'm willing to admit that that's character bias. And if Zahir is showing that he's a little on the weekend, then by all means, you know, a defense buff I think is a good direction to take because his damage is already very high. Giving him a little bit more survivability I think is the most impactful change they could give that doesn't tip the scales too much in his favor. Jackie is showing very high average placements, so her W is getting nerfed. Most Jackie builds I've seen don't max W, we max Q, then E. So this change is very negligible until late game. I'm really not too worried about. Actually, no, you max Q then W, right? At the moment. So, hey, remember when I said before that it might be time to max Q then E again? It's time to fucking start thinking about it. W is getting nerfed. E is already a good ability. Stop mindlessly following what people have been doing for the last few months. We proved, well, not on stream, but I've proven for a fact in the last few days to other Magnus players that even on AMP, maxing Q is statistically better than maxing W based on damage numbers. You have a higher DPS, you have more CC, you just have to land your goddamn ability. I guarantee you E is going to be the exact same way for mobility. Next patch, stop maxing Q, start maxing E. Or stop, no, keep maxing Q. Stop maxing W, start maxing E instead. I think most people do max E at the moment, but there are some people who max W instead. Which is kind of why I went through that. So anyways, Cathy, under the knife, additional crit strike damage is being decreased. Cathy is very strong at the moment. This nerf actually does a lot considering the fact that she has frag, which gives her a guaranteed crit. So, very good change. I'm hoping to see frag nerfs below as well. Chiara, there's a big difference in average placements between tank and crit build. Yes, so W is gaining more AP ratio. And the base is the same, so they're just buffing the W's AP ratio. That doesn't heavily buff crit because crit's not building a bunch of AP. But it does more for crit technically than tank. Crit's not building any AP, is it? Hold on. Catalog. Chiara. So Bolty's 47. This is 35, so that's negligible. I guess they get 10 AP from there. I don't think they play Creed. If they play Creed, then it's a buff. For sure. They do play Busef. Okay, yeah, no, it's good. It's solid. I think that's a good change. Hart, base AP is up. Q, movement speed decrease is being buffed. 5%, but they're also, it's 5% self, 10% to opponent, I believe. Okay. And E, SP cost is flattened across the board. All right. I personally hate Hart, but she does seem to be a little worse off now. I don't think I agree with the AP buff, but I definitely agree with making the Q a little bit less punishing for her. Hyunwoo is losing AP per level and is receiving a huge AP nerf on his ultimate. 10% uncharged, but upwards to 30% charged. The cooldown is being decreased though, so that's kind of nice. So, Glove. Weapon mastery. So per level, Glove is gaining 0.3% attack speed, 0.2% normal attack amp, but it's losing 0.4% skill amp. That is a nerf to Smolder Hyunwoo. Overall, I think, because most of its damage is going to come from its abilities, and then of course the Smolder passive. I think this is a decent change, and it's in an attempt to bring back more melee focused Glove builds. It's a buff for Dylan. I mean, yeah, no, it's for sure a buff for Dylan, but their focus is Hyunwoo right now, I believe. Poor Leon, yeah, but he does get attack speed buffs from it, which is nice. And then Bloodwing's getting buffed, who cares? There's a new pistol, so now you can make a Glock. Built out of an EMP drone. I don't know what the routing for this is going to be, but it does have 20% attack speed with 70 AP, 0.1 MS, 0.5 attack range. So I think it's decent. This is basically the like counterpart to Magnum Boa, I guess. I think it'll probably need a little bit better stats. Like you'll probably need to buff its attack speed or maybe buff its attack range by another 0.5 to make it worth playing over Magnum Boa. But on the other end, why would you give a pistol that much range, right? So yeah, we'll see. If its routing is good though, it'll be viable regardless because it could enable new pathings that didn't exist before. Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger is removing its guaranteed crit and losing movement speed. Dagger's fucked. Dagger's stupidly fucked, man. I think Dagger steals the worst in the game now after this. It's an attack speed reset, but you can't use it fast enough that you couldn't have just auto-attacked again, I think, pretty much, right? The movement speed decrease is huge because the movement speed is one of the big boons of it. You gain invis, but now you don't have a crit. I don't think it's worth anymore, to be honest. They need to buff it in some way to compensate for this afterwards. Frag, though, is getting nerfed. It's losing a little bit of MS and a little bit of AP. It needs more of a nerf than this. This is not enough. Cathy, I think, is still going to be the best character in the game after this patch based on what we've seen. Axe. Juggernaut is losing some of its negative attack range, which is great. The weapon is not viable. If we bring back some of this attack range, maybe drop it to 0.15, I think it'll be in a great spot, and there's a little bit more incentive to use it then. But Axe Jackie is already in a good spot, so I don't want to buff it too much. Parshu is gaining a little bit more CDR. That's nice, but I don't think it's impactful enough to make you want to run Parshu over Scythe like we're seeing. And then of course there's Harp gaining another 2 flat amp. Overall, the good axes weren't nerfed, and Axe Jackie is in a good spot, but she was nerfed. I think if you're playing Axe Jackie, you're more than welcome to just keep playing it. I don't think it's going to hurt you too much. Type 95 is getting buffed for ARs. Cool, moving on, don't care. This could bring crit Isol kind of back in, but to be honest, I don't think it's that great regardless, so I wouldn't worry about it. But if you're playing Aya, I could see saying you want to mess around with Type 95 because she was buffed as well. Rapier is losing attack speed per level, but its normal attack amp is being increased. I think this is actually a good change in regards to Fiora. She doesn't really care about having a bunch of attack speed, and the normal attack amp means that her W and everything else is going to be hitting a lot harder. Hammer of Dagger is losing 50% HP regen. It's gaining 3 AP and gaining 3 Enade. I'm not sure if Nibble Neuron understands that they've murdered this weapon and that it no longer exists. The reason for running Hammer of Dagger was never this. You didn't care about the AP. You didn't care about the Enade. You cared about the HP regen stat, and they removed HP regen as a viable build. It doesn't exist anymore, so this doesn't matter. This weapon just needs to be completely repurposed. Weight of the World, though, is receiving a buff, actually. This is an interesting buff, in my opinion, because I've been using Weight of the World a lot, and I actually think it's good on Magnus. It's not usable on Sua, because of the way her passive works, but Weight of the World is going to be even better. So you will possibly see, I will probably continue to play the build I'm playing now. We'll experiment with some other things, but we're not going to see major build changes like I was expecting before. Vajra is getting a 4 AP nerf, though, to compensate. It's really good right now. I don't think this is going to stop it from being good, but it is going to pull back that power a little bit. Vajra Luke is doing really well, and then we just played a game with Vajra Magnus where we managed to get 7 kills. It's very strong as well, I think. Vajra is just a force to be reckoned with, and I think that it's kind of on par with MKB, and I wouldn't mind seeing it dropped to 90 AP. But on the same end, if you dropped it to 90 AP, that's probably a little over-tuning it. I think if anything, sudden impact needs to be increased to 4 seconds. I actually don't completely agree that this buff was necessary either for that same reason. I think sudden and focused impact are really good, and I think that's the best way to nerf the weapon personally, because if you drop it to 90 AP then 80 AP, you're kind of removing the reason to build the weapon. Crossbow, skill amp per level is up. Attack speed on Ballista is down. Golden Ghost is getting buffed. So if you wanted to play amp Crossbow, I guess that's getting a little bit better. Texty, congrats. Overall, I don't think it's great, but it's doable, right? Dual Swords, Xiukai is getting another buff. So this is 2 buffs to Dual Swords Yuki in 1 patch. I think Dual Swords Yuki is already really good, and we're more than likely going to see it come into the meta and actually just be stronger in general. Please, if you're a Yuki player, give Dual Swords a good shot right now. I think you'll be surprised at just how good it feels. Nunchucks, Smiting Dragon is getting 2 flat amp, and Cerberus is getting buffed. Nunchuk Dailin, it's always been weak. We're just seeing constant buffs. Eventually, it'll be good, right? I didn't turn on my AC. That should be enough. Yeah, okay. Shuriken, Wind and Fire is getting 2 skill amp. Peneltorin is getting 3 AP nerf. It's losing 5 Enade, or extra skill damage. It's losing 5 at a flat amp, and then it's gaining a little bit on charge time technically, right? You'll gain another stack every 6 seconds before you would have. But Pedal Torrent is nerfed overall. Pedal Torrent's really strong, and I think it might need to see more nerfs than this, but this is okay for now. Wind and Fire Wheels hasn't been in the meta for a long time, so I do think it needs a little bit of love. The extra 2% is nice, and maybe we'll see it come back on someone like Sissela. Arondite is gaining 5 E-Nade. Arondite, for the same reasons as Wind and Fire, has basically just been pushed out of the meta as better options have come up. It's not doing well against the test of time. Power creep is kind of a thing in this game so far. New items get released, they have better things, better routing. Arondite is kind of just falling on the wayside. 5% I don't think is going to be enough to fix it. You would either need to buff its E-Nade, which I think is dangerous because again, true damage, or buff its AP, which I think is the better end to look at. Excalibur is getting nerfed again, losing more HP regen, but its attack speed is being buffed. Same as before, Hammer of Dodka, this weapon is pointless now and needs to be repurposed. Deadly Ray is losing 5% skill amp, or no, 6%, right? No, it's 5. Yeah, it's losing 5% skill amp. Deadly Ray has actually been seeing some levels of success playing a more like spellcaster-ish Aya build that looks to abuse Dobok's attack range to get like decent engages, and then using Glacial Slippers to close in on targets and finish them off. I think 5% is reasonable considering how much it has, and then of course it's on Sniper, so it's like this is a good nerf I think to reel those back in. Those are always controversial builds because they can feel a little griefy, so to speak. You get kills early, and then you just like to scale to late. Blazing Lance is getting buffed by 10 AP. It may be a kind of okay option now, but it's just going to be struggling to find a place in this meta. The spear users that want to play it really can't because they don't have builds to facilitate it. I've been talking a lot, my head hurts. Ugh. Tank Fiora? No, Tank Fiora won't be good. Attack speed per weapon, per mastery level is up on throw by 0.3. David Sling is getting nerfed on HP regen. That's fine. David Sling is not ran for HP regen. This is the only HP regen where it actually does have a purpose outside of HP regen. David Sling is getting a buff to compensate, right? It's already really good. William is getting buffed because of this. We've seen Zahir play David Sling. Well, he plays Ruth Marble, I think. But he's played it before. Sissela can play David Sling. David Sling is good. The other regen weapons need to be buffed to David Sling's caliber to the point where regen is not the reason to build the weapon. It's either the E-Nade or another beneficial stat on the side of it. So David Sling's getting buffed. Hopefully William will actually be a good force in the meta considering he's a new character. I would like to see him succeed. Fireball, extra skill damage is up. Fireball hasn't really seen good play yet, but this might push it over the edge because this means it's getting an extra 10 flat amp at the end of the game at level 20, obviously. And that's a lot. We may see that built more on a character like Adriana as a late game weapon. So we'll see. High explosive grenades is getting nerfed. It's a very good item. You can 2-zone it. Understandable. Grenade Advanced Notch is getting nerfed, but it is gaining more charges, which that's kind of good. And then Dyadic Prism is getting nerfed, but it's gaining more attack speed. Dyadic Prism is really good. I think they just want to find a balance to make it more in line with where they want it to be. At the moment, it's just an AP nuke. If they give it more attack speed, they want it to be more attack focused. Understandable. Tonfa is gaining attack speed per level, which is nice, but I don't think... this opens up more viability for tactical Tonfa. It doesn't really do anything for my sock, though. Plasma Tonfa, however, is getting nerfed on defense. Plasma Tonfa is a one-zone weapon. I feel like this nerf doesn't... if you were going to build Plasma Tonfa, I don't feel like this nerf makes you not want to anymore. You build it for its speed, not for its stats. Bow. Normal attack amp is down, so again, they were transitioning bow from amp to crossbow. Ancient Bolt is being nerfed to being more of a scaling weapon than it was before. So Rio will be weaker early game than she was before. And then same for Nadine when they're building that. Armor changes. So basically what they're doing is they're splitting up true damage and then cellular damage. Cellular damage is ability damage that is affected by defense. And then nothing else, right? And then true damage is true damage. Rocker's Jacket is having an AP nerf. Rocker's Jacket is really good. This was expected and pulls it back in line with Butler's suit. So now if you were building Butler's suit, you don't have to sit here and say, well, fuck, Rocker's is better. Why am I building Butler's? You can probably go back to building Butler's, but I think it's still a little weak overall. Battlesuit is receiving a normal attack damage reduction nerf. Amazon is receiving a 3% skill damage reduction nerf. These are kind of the same change in the sense where they're trying to pull away from defensive stats. Tank stats are really good right now. You normally only have to build one defensive item and then you basically are a bruiser in this game. And the more we see nerfs like this, the more that people will either have to spec into full damage and be glass cannons or commit multiple items to being tanky rather than just one. Keep in mind though, Mithril armor still wasn't changed, so it's still going to be a one-stop shop for a tank. Like for tanky stats, it gives 60 defense and it gives, or 55 defense, it gives 55 or 60 defense and it gives flat amp reduction. It's good as fuck. Tuxedo is gaining 2 defense. Tuxedo I think is already really nice and has found its niche in the meta. I don't think we need to buff it too much more. The problem is mostly that the characters that want to build it have been a little weak in the moment, right? Mostly being William. So buffing that, along with buffing those characters, we may see overinflated buffs, you know, in combination, and the characters' win rates will skyrocket because of that. Blazing Dress is getting buffs. Blazing Dress has been shown to be underwhelming. It is only viable on like 2 different characters. So the buff is nice, but I feel like this is one of those items where it's like, it's a build around, but the builds that enable it aren't good enough to take tree, and I don't know how the Nimble Neuron's going to fix that. Sword Stopper. Defense is decreased and normal attack damage reduction is decreased. I guess I was wrong. Sword Stopper's busted. So yeah, Sword Stopper's getting nerfed. It's not dead, but it's good, right? It's still fine, but it's nowhere nearly as good as it was before because the normal attack damage reduction has been cut by 3, which does add up over the course of a game and a fight. But you'll still build it for the same reasons as before. It gives healing reduction. It has a lot of defense. It's just a really nice piece of equipment. Bernice is losing 5 defense and gaining SP. Pointless stat. This doesn't matter. It's losing 5 defense. Bernice is worse now. Creed of the Night. Creed of the Night is losing 3 AP, but it's gaining movement speed, technically. The negative movement speed is being taken away. Its attack power is being buffed, where it's in a much better spot now, I think. Because it's like you do build it for the AP, but the negative movement speed was a little more impactful. You're mostly building it for that crit damage. So it's in a good situation, I think. Cube Watch is gaining 5 defense. I've been saying how I think Cube Watch is really good and could be a situational swap for Sword Stopper. I will be looking to build it more now to test it a little bit better. Cube Watch does give 50% attack speed. It gives CDR against defense. It's not good for everyone, but there will be characters who want to build this more now. There is a new arm piece called Nightingale. It builds out of a healing potion and squad leader armband. It gives 10 AP, max HP, and 20% healing increase. This is questionable. I don't know if this is going to be viable. It's definitely only going to be good on certain characters, right? I could see this being good on Sissela. I could see this being good on 11. I could see this being good on Hyunwoo. I don't think, and I could see Xiukai using this because it makes his food even better, right? And Xiukai's food stats are already really high. This is going to add an extra 20% on top of them, so like his food will be healing for like an extra 150. I think there's a world where this could bring back Region, but Region still needs a headpiece, and yeah, nah, it's just not happening. Region's dead. Don't worry about it. Speaking of, Bracelet of Scotty is losing its HP region and SP region. Worthless nerf. This doesn't matter. I don't even understand why Nimble Neuron is contemplating these buffs and nerfs. Over the course of a fight, this means that when you're using Scotty, keep in mind region builds do not use Scotty, so Scotty is being nerfed specifically for amp builds as a defensive stat. Over the course of a fight, you may gain 10 less HP. This is negligible. It doesn't matter. This is actually pointless. If you wanted to nerf Scotty, you need to either reduce the damage or reduce the HP that it's giving. Boots. Boots are being changed from rare to uncommon. everyone will have less movement mastery if they're building boots items this now. Killer Heels is going to have its movement speed increased, which was nice because it had kind of shitty movement speed. Feather Boots is losing attack speed, which is fine. Feather Boots is one of the best boots in the game, in my opinion. It's not good on everybody, but basically, if you're not wanting an Ant Boots, you want Feather Boots. Maverick Runners is getting buffed. Maverick Runners actually is looking to be a very strong set of boots. The problem is it's difficult to build. Builds out of a motor, right? Or no, it builds out of a cell phone, doesn't it? Yeah, it built out of a cell phone. This shit's hard. This is not easy to make. So of course building its stats to compensate for that is nice. It does have 20% tenacity. This is one of those things where people just like haven't phased it in yet. It's a good item, it's just not seeing play yet. And then Bucephalus is seeing a 5% AP nerf, but it's gaining crit chance. Glacier Shoes is receiving the same nerf Scotty did. Not a big deal. They're still going to be cracked. I think double glacials is one of the most busted thing in this game. I say double glacials, I mean Scotty and glacials. So yeah, if you're building those, keep doing it. Red Shoes is being changed from Killer Heels to High Heels, so it's easier to build them now. It's a one zone in hospital. And I think it's also a one zone in hotel, right? Or am I wrong? Slippers are in hotel, right? Yeah, they are. Are they? Shit, chat, I'm fucking bugging over here. No, it's not a one zone. It's a one zone in hotel and a two zone between school and hotel or avenue and hotel. Okay, it's gaining AP, it's losing its crit chance, and it's gaining MS. I think Red Shoes are still good. You don't want it for the crit anymore, you want it for the AP that it provides. Which I think is solid. There's characters are still gonna want to build it, it's just not a direct upgrade from Bucephalus anymore. EO2 Boots is gaining trap damage reduction, which is nice. Mohawk is having its normal attack damage reduction removed and its healing reduction removed. It's gaining thorns. Every time you're hit with an auto attack, you will reflect back 7% of the damage you received as true damage and inflict healing reduction on the attacker. I think this could be really good. It's not a build around like I thought it would be, but it is good for the people who are building this anyways. I think this is especially good for Lenox. It's already in her build path. She'll build it with her weapon. She doesn't care for the healing reduction, which I think the people who do build this other than Lenox will care for the healing reduction. It may need buffs to see widespread play, but I think it could see niche play for now. Mithril Helm is gaining 5% attack speed. Its movement speed is being lowered. I think that's fine. Mithril Helm is giving a lot of movement speed right now. The attack speed buff does feel like it puts it more in line as being an upgraded attack ops. But I also think Mithril Helm is a underwhelming Mithril upgrade now anyways, so. Kitty. Opera Mask is getting nerfed. Good. Opera Mask is busted as fuck, so it'll be doing less damage. Its movement speed is also reduced. Great. So we are seeing more Cathy nerfs because this is best in slot on Cathy. Helm of Banneret is being nerfed as well. It is the premier tank headpiece, I think, behind Crown. Crown is good. Crown is busted. Helm of Banneret provides utility stats. We should see Crown nerfs soon. Probably next patch. Gilded Quill Fan is now at its max healing reduction for melees, as it should be. For Magazine is losing 30 HP. There is a new accessory, builds out a Feather Duster and Decorative Flintlock. It's called the Jolly Roger. Gives 12 attack power, 12% lifesteal. It has the unique effect not as Swift Strides, right? So when you charged while fully moved, 24 meters compared to 20. Gain additional movement speed up to 0.12 based on charge stacks. This is another one. I'm just kind of comparing them for y'all. This one gains 0.2 compared to 0.12, and on the next normal attack, it consumes all stacks to inflict up to 120 damage and applies a 15% slow. This one does 200 damage and applies a 30% slow. Keep in mind the slow is for melees only. So yeah, this is pretty solid. I could definitely see myself playing this on Magnus. Like, I might swap from Quiver to this, specifically because we're gaining attack speed per level, I believe, right? No, we're not. Okay, but still, I might swap over to this, to be honest. It seems solid. I think the legendary one, though, is really good. It builds out of Gilded Quill Fan via Blood Sample. And it has cooldown reduction, which this one doesn't. It has lifesteal. It also comes with healing reduction, so it's like really nice item here. I think instead of going auto arms via blood mask, I'll probably go auto arms sanguine goodbye instead. On Amp Magnus? No, I will be playing this on Tank Magnus. Bun. HP recovery is up by 50. First med kit is up by 50. I think this is nice because it is like mocha and bread. Those are two like really good items that you could craft with. So it's like if you're combining both of them to get a single consumable, I think 700 is fair. Recon drone is going up to 6. EMP drone, the cast time is being removed and it's going up to 6. They're trying to incentivize people to build these more and use them. Remote Mines is having its recipe change. It'll now be built out of mouse traps, enhanced mouse traps, which means you need iron ore. It'll be a little bit harder to build this, but not a big deal. The big thing is that it's iron ore is easy to come by because people normally only need one and they'll leave it around, so it's like you won't have to worry about like, oh, there's no nails left, I'm fucked kind of thing. Defense Mastery. Defense Mastery is being nerfed as a whole, so every character will receive this nerf. Skill damage reduction and normal attack damage defense is being reduced on both of them. Everyone will be doing more damage coming next patch. I do not do mode balancing. If you're interested in these, I recommend coming and seeing them yourself. I don't play enough duos and squads to have a good insight for what this means, so I can't really help you there. And that's gonna be it for the patch rundown.